Hello folks, and welcome to another video featuring the Husqvarna Viking Designer Topaz 25 sewing machine, which is a sewing machine beyond what I was expecting from sewing machines, as I mentioned in my last video. I've been out abroad having some travels, so I've been away, but it's time to make another video. So let's fire the thing up. Now, thank you. Now, last time I showed you the regular sewing activities and whatnot, and then I came back, so now it's time to cover something that I did not for a second know that sewing machines could do. They're like printers. It's magical. So the setup here is relatively straightforward. I just take the accessory box away and I will put it behind the machine or on top here, like that. And then I'm going to fetch the transformer module. And it's like 2001: A Space Odyssey, it just comes flying in ready to dock. It's an old code, but it should still work. And the machine will now restart. There we go. And as the machine is saying, kalibrera broderenheten, ta av broderbågen, frigör broderarmen för kalibrering, sätt fast broderfoten. It's telling me to take the embroidery hoop off, clear up the embroidery arm for calibration, and attach the embroidery foot. So that part I will do right now. So just look into my accessory box and bring out the pouch I made for the feet. This one does not have a spot in that holder though, because of the fact that it is a little bit of an unusual shape compared to the other things. But anyway, I will just pop this open. I think I have the B foot up. Yes, I do have the B. I can tell because it has a little groove underneath so that it can deal with thicker fabrics. So in it goes. I'll just fold this up. This is honestly so much nicer than having to rummage through the accessory box, so I'm quite happy I made it. In fact, I'm stunned that I was able to make it considering how little sewing I had been doing before. Then I'm just going to put the embroidery foot on. A little bit of finagling. There we go. And I'll open up this and I will take the thread out of the machine, because embroidering requires a different type of thread than the regular sewing will. So let's see, it has a little thing at the top to catch the thread. I have to say there's really a difference between nice thread and the stuff that you pick up at the grocery store to mend your socks with. But anyway, calibrate the embroidery unit, says the machine, and who am I to say no? So I'll just okay. And the embroidery unit is now calibrated, so I will select one of my designs. I created a pattern on my computer, which is supposed to be a thing of lavender. I used it in, or did it in Inkscape, so it's quite simplistic because I haven't done SVG before. Not a whole lot of stitches in the total. It has 4 colors, and that means I need to switch the thread 4 times, and it's asking for a 120 by 120 hoop. So without further ado, it's actually time to show what does a 120 by 120 hoop mean, and how does that relate to putting a pattern into the machine. But I have been going on far too much about that, so let's just get underway. Now then, the idea behind this video was that I created a new pattern, and it's quite useful to test out a pattern on a cheaper piece of fabric before you're running it on the real deal. So this is going to be a test run of sorts. So I have here my blue demo fabric that I basically picked up for exactly this reason. And the machine has already told me, as you could see on the screen earlier, that it wants a 120 by 120 hoop. And as luck would have it, I happen to have one of those. Some might say that the fact that the machine told me I should use one of those and the fact that I have one might be related. To those, I would say that you are very astute, and that's indeed quite correct. So, hooping the fabric, I just put the hoop on the table. I put the fabric above it, and I insert the top part of the hoop. Now then I just hold my hand steady and pull on the fabric a bit, looking to straighten it out into a good citizen. So let's see. I mean, ideally, if I was doing this, I would iron the fabric first, like a sensible person. But it's a demo fabric, so the final outcome is not critical. And I've locked it in. Seems pretty nice. Yeah, pretty taut there. I'm going to take care of the adjustment screw for a bit, and there we go, hooped fabric. Usually it will require some support material underneath, and in order to save on support material, what I like to do is to just take, well, a bit of scrap of it, put it underneath where I want the motif to go, you will see this later, and then have the machine stitch it on in a square around the pattern so that it's being held in place. And the purpose of this is so that it's going to be a lot more firm, so that the fabric isn't going to scrunch up weirdly, which can happen. And that's part of what we're testing for in this particular print. Or print, embroidery, whatever. So I have my fabric scissors, and I'm just going to cut the fabric around the hoop. So let's see here. I'll just take it up, excuse me, Mr. Crow. Mr. Crow, or I suppose Mr. Raven, is from Iceland. He's a very nice helper, making sure that I'm not forgetting any critical steps as I'm doing this. Obviously, if you're a serious sewer, you are probably horrified at my handling of the fabric and how seriously and such I'm taking this entire process. Now let's see, let's try not to cut the hoop. That would be a terrible waste of a nice pair of scissors. So, like that. And there we go, hooped and ready to go into the machine. So, let's get back to the machine and see what's what. Right, so back at the machine, and before I attach the newly hooped fabric to it, there are a couple of steps that needs to be taken care of. So I will put this aside. I will go into the hoop control panel and put it into the cutting mode. Oh no, I guess I can't do that because it would require me to have a hoop inside. So, first step, for embroidery, you use special types of thread. I have a set of rayon thread here for embroidery. So, I'm going to use, well, since I'm doing a lavender, I'm going to use a green thread. And I'm going to use, for the real one, I'm going to use a more dark violet thread. But for this one, I have a thread that actually decided to make a daring escape because it does not want to be put into a machine and become repeatedly entangled with fabric. Anyway, I have a purple thread, purplish I think. It has an interesting pattern. I think it shifts colors every now and then, so the final embroidery will look quite interesting. And I will also need a white thread, which is going to go around the colored parts of the petals to give them a little bit more of a uniform appearance, because otherwise they can look a little bit ragged. But this is the second embroidery I've done by myself, so we will see how it comes out. Next up, I would like to see the color information. So what I can see is that I have the first color, which is going to be the purplish one. The second color has a lot of green in it. As you can see, AF compared to the 3/8. This one also purplish, and if I step down a bit, just FFFFF, so white. Now then, beyond that, for machine embroidery, one will need a special bobbin thread, which I have already wound a bobbin of it because I was doing embroidery before. So take it out of my bobbin case, and this is the one. I can tell because it's incredibly flimsy, and that's not particularly much of a problem because of the fact that a machine embroidery is going to put a lot of thread in a small space. So flimsy thread, not a big deal whatsoever. So just thread the bobbin as before. See if I can get the loose one. There we go. I got it to slot in upside down. Things are going brilliantly for me. Okay, in it goes. Into the tensioning area, around the hook, through the knife, and I will put the lid on. Marvelous. Next step is the threading of the machine itself. So I will just take this thread off, like that, get it onto the spool holder, like this, and I'll just take the sticker off, and then, let's see, over, under, over, just take it through the amazing maze, and up and behind. There was the click. Down, see here, through this little hook behind the needle threader, through there, and the needle threader comes down and through, and it's pulled a small loop that didn't actually accomplish what I wanted. Threading a machine is not the easiest thing, but an embroidery with a lot of thread changes is going to simplify the process for you dramatically. Reason being that you will have plenty more opportunity to get good at it than you could possibly want. Let's see here. Yeah, I see you. Come on. Come on, there you go, buddy. There you go. Yep, straight through and down through the foot. And there we are. threaded machine with the first color. A little bit frayed perhaps, but that's fine, I'll just pull some through. And I will cut it later, so it's not a huge deal. So I'm going to put away the excess thread, and best not to forget to put the little washer on. There we are. Now then, machine threaded, good to go. So it's time to put my hoop of fabric on. And put this away. So for this particular machine, it's just, I can raise the foot a little extra. I can lower the foot a little extra and then raise it. And then I think it's just finding the groove. And there. Finding the groove is more difficult than it might seem. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to try to place the pattern inside the hoop. And I think that just putting it in the top corner would be nice, so I will place it there, and then I will do the corner check. And the machine is going to show where will it go. Yep. So I'll put it in the upper left. Then I'm going to take this support material that I have here and just slide it in underneath the hoop and send a piece of thread flying while I'm at it. Let's see here. There we go. I can sort of see it underneath. So, yeah. This will work quite nicely, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the fix button. And the machine is now set up to stitch the support material in place. Let's see. Just want to make sure that there's enough. There we go. So now I'm just going to zoom in a bit, and we're going to start out rather quite slowly. So let's see. Yep. And see, I'll just pull that behind. So it's actually cut the thread now, so I will have it moved to the cutting position. I'll move the thread holder out of the way, and I will get some of my thread back. But as we can see, we have a small area. This is the square within which the pattern will be put. So I think that for now there isn't much more to do but to actually get started, and I'm going to make sure that you get a better view of the process, because I'm just nice like that. And the menu here, in case you're wondering, it's saying present mode, parking mode, spool mode, cutting mode, and center mode. Cutting mode is here so that I can easily access the fabric, and I'm actually going to make use of the cutting position. So scissors, little snip, and there we go. So I will put this back to the... Alright, so time to get started, and getting started is a pretty simple process. First, I have my thread in. I have basted a pattern of support stitches. So I'm going to just start pressing on the pedal for a little bit, let the machine run a couple of stitches into the material. And we will see this will be a very small design. There we go. And the machine has now started putting its design onto the fabric. So nothing for it but to go over here and press start. Cutting the thread. See a small design emerging. And now the machine is talking to me. It says byt trådfärg, ny färg 00AF38. And it's saying change thread color, new color 00AF38. I think if I used a more expensive program than Inkscape to make the embroidery pattern, it would actually say the name of the color, but since I'm not, and I don't want to, because the more expensive program is $2,000 US, or even I think one of the base entries that doesn't even allow you to make a custom pattern is going to run you somewhere in the length of 2,000 to 4,000 krona, and it's basically just going to allow you to edit a pre-made pattern. And by edit I mean rotate, scale and put together, which is quite frankly ridiculous. So I am right now just threading the machine, somewhat unsuccessfully. See, I'll put the washer on straight away, sort of straight away, crooked away. Crooked away sounds like the name a corrupt politician would use prior to making his brave escape from a press conference. Sort of like Team Rocket, except less comedic and more sad. See, so there it goes onto the little hook. Needle threader comes down, I pull it back, that through. And this is why I mentioned that thread changes will be infinitely easier when you have done a couple of embroideries. I'll put my finger underneath the pressure foot like a brave man. That is a lot of excess thread, but so it is. So, zooming back in, and basically I will push the pedal again. And pull the thread loose. And now it's just doing a satin stitch, is what it's called, at a slow speed. But of course it can go faster. And here's just me controlling it with the pedal and making it go by itself. So there's the little branch, and again the screen is telling me change thread color. New thread color is 57369E. So let's see here. I'll just get up to my old witchcraft, out with the old, in with the new. This is a really nice green color, I think. So wind that up, and I will not be using it again. Today at least. So there we go. Away with that, and it's now asking me for the purple again. So violet, I'm not sure, this thread. This thread has varying colors, which means that it's open to viewer interpretation as to which color it actually is. So I'm going to pull this up because that makes it have a bit of a resistance when I'm pulling it through the mechanism, which helps a lot. Sound advice to anyone just starting out. See, did it go through? Yeah, it did go through. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So, in here, tiny little hooky thing that I don't like the hooky thing, and it does not like me, so we have an understanding. So, needle threader. Made a tiny little hoop this time. Straight through, raise that. And I'll just make a little loop like this for pushing through the presser foot so that it doesn't get anything tangled. There we go. And as you can see during the course of this video, as I'm getting back into the groove, things are much easier. So, just a slow start. Okay, I did change it. Foot is down. So, a couple of ones, I flip the thread down, and then I push the start. And this is going to be a long step, as is visible on the screen right here. thread broken. So the thread is not broken, I can tell, because I'm pulling on it and it doesn't come out. So therefore we will just zoom back in and let the machine continue working. And now actually let's change to white, so I will do that. Just zoom out, and I think that we can really see that the pattern is coming out really nicely on the fabric. I super like this color changing thread. Don't know if color changing is the correct term to use to describe it, but it's varying in shades of white to purple. And it's really creating an interesting pattern for a flowery type of thing. And whether or not it's quite appropriate for lavender, well, hesitant. Perhaps a purple to light purple would work a lot better for lavender than this setup. But this is why you test on a piece of scrap fabric, or otherwise, let's see, under, down, up, around. Okay, and we're down at the needle area again, where I can hardly show you because it's, as with most sewing machines, quite cramped. I was looking at another model of sewing machine before I was, well, I can't say settled, before I was guided onto this one by the lovely lady working in the store, who was kind enough to give me a tip that the display model, this is a display model I have right here, for the next most advanced model of sewing / embroidery machine was on quite a steep discount. So I picked this one up for nearly 5,000 Swedish less than it would have otherwise been, which, you know, is a fantastic deal. I think this machine is probably a little bit overkill for someone like me who is a complete rookie at sewing. Definitely overkill, as a matter of fact. But I'm happy, and I think that as my skill develops, this machine is going to serve very well. A couple of stitches there just to fix the thread, and then we are on to the home stretch, which is, well, just 1099 stitches to go for done. So let's start. Well, no, let's zoom in. Now we're just going to watch this. So it's creating an outline of the leaves. We'll see how it turns out. embroidery finished. So let's move this out into the cutting mode or cutting position, and we'll take a look at the thing that we've created. I think lessons learned that I'm seeing already, because this is, as I mentioned, the first iteration. I think that what I would change is that the white threads it put out at the end, I don't really want them. The back of the embroidery here has a lot of thread that's has gone through the fabric here, so it's concerning from that point of view. I think if I were to use this embroidery on something, I would want it to have an inside type of wall going on. I would say though that primarily the color changing one works really well, and I think I will use it again for the real deal. But yeah, the white outlining honestly just served to make a complete mess of the entire thing. I don't know, would you be able to tell this was lavender? Would you be able to tell it was lavender if it was put on a box with or on top of a bag with lavender in it? Maybe. I think that, yeah, it definitely needs a little bit of work in the outlining portion. I think that was a complete waste of thread and a waste of a good embroidery. But beyond that, you can see that had I programmed it nicer, chances are that it would have yielded a nicer result. So that's just kind of how things go. So I hope that you have enjoyed watching this machine do its thing for quite some time. I'm going to remove the embroidery equipment now so that the machine is set up to do normal sewing. Particularly, I will take the embroidery type of thread out. Just embroider down, okay. Yep. And I will say you can remove the hoop. Yep. Hoop's removed. So it's in parking mode. I'll just push a lever, pull the thing out. And the thing now initializes to regular sewing mode. And the one last thing that I will want to do is to remove the embroidery thread, because if I try to mend any clothing with embroidery thread, what I would find quite quickly is the fact that it wouldn't actually hold up to much of anything, seeing as how embroidery thread is considerably weaker than normal thread, on account of needing to be put with such a dense stitch placement. Goes out with the embroidery thread, and I will put that away. I don't need to put a new bobbin in the machine. I'll find that later. This one actually does come with a bobbin thread sensor, so if there was no thread in and I tried to sew, it would indeed tell me off. But up with this. Be gone embroidery foot. And I will just put the A foot on, mainly because of the fact that usually my sewing involves thinner fabric, so I'll just put on the foot that I'm more likely to use. And I'll pack the foot pouch away. I think that would work a lot better with a snap button, to be honest. But it is how it is. So, on that note, I hope that you have a wonderful day, afternoon, morning, evening, or anything other that you happen to be having at the exact moment you're watching this. I hope you've enjoyed. Please feel free to leave a like, and as always, I really appreciate feedback in the comments because it's very, very nice and oftentimes encouraging to read. So, thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.